Hi, I'm Derek Fraser from Coldstream Rod Shop. Welcome to this episode of a compilation of the assembly of the 32 Brookville Roadster bodies. As I described in the previous videos, we put 4 of these together over the past 3 years of seconds. This video is basically going to put together all 7 of the last episodes of building it all into one. So hopefully you enjoy. It's going to be all the build all in one shot. Hi, welcome back to Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. This is the first episode of us building the 32 Ford Roadster body. We've done it for ourselves, but never did it on video. So that's ours over there. And then behind the camera lady here are all of the pieces that would make up the 32 Ford Roadster. So in the first episode here, I'm going to go through building the sub rails. For those of you guys who watch Iron Trap Garage, he just did the same thing. He went out, he bought the Brookville Roadster sub rail pieces, put it together, and he put it underneath an existing 32 Ford Roadster. We're kind of be taking it a step back further. So some of the pieces that he bought welded or put together, I'm going to put together. So right now, what I have here is I've got the bottom section of the sub rail. I just attached it to the frame here with some clamps, and then I'm going to work my way through and weld it all together. This is the top section that's going to go on that. So I'm going to do both of these on both sides and then work my way through doing it. So that's the introduction, and just follow along. So here's the next step. We last left off, I had the inner sub rail. I was welding it. So I did that side and I did this side. So this side now, it's completely welded and I dressed it. You can see on the inside where I've got good weld penetration all along. So that's the lower subframe right there. It's going to go on it. The piece between the camera lady's legs here is the upper sub rail that actually is going to go on here. On the driver's side, I've actually put them together. So I've got the inner and the outer sub rail put together here and tacked in place. So that's it there. I'm going to carry on, and I'll just dress these welds up just a little bit. But in the factory, what they would have done is they would have spot welded here and there. And that's what they do at Brookville as well. They basically take a spot welder and they weld the two of them together. There is a little bit of dolly work that you have to do, because when you fit the inner sub rail into the outer sub rail, you've got to basically open this up so that they fit together, and then dolly them together and make a nice smooth surface here. So again, I'm just going to carry on with this. I'm going to dress those welds up a bit, put that on the frame, switch over here and do this one, and then I'm going to drill the holes into it. So here we are now. The passenger side sub rail is all put together and welded. I've drilled all the holes. As I described before, all these parts we got from Brookville were seconds, and the holes were seconds. They typically are laser drilled pinholes where the holes are matched, so I actually had to move a couple of the holes to suit the holes in the frame. So sub rail's done, both sides are bolted down. What I got to do now, these 2 cross pieces, I've got to weld them in place. So there's 2 pieces, I don't know if you want to call them dowels or whatever, but they come in under the bolts here, and then these pieces get welded on top. So I'll clamp those down and weld them. Then I'll put the floor in, weld the floor in, and then I'm probably going to finish off this video by doing the firewall as well. So just keep watching along as we go and put the complete sub rails together for the 32 Ford Roadster. So I carried on with the rest of the subframe. I have the 2 cross pieces welded in here. I actually took the whole subframe back off, flipped it upside down, and I welded those dowels like I showed you a couple minutes ago underneath. So the dowels are welded to the cross pieces. The cross pieces are welded to the subframe, and then I spot welded or made it look like I spot welded the floor pan underneath the seat and the floor pan to the back of the body. There are two pieces that will weld underneath the floor pans here. I don't put them in right now. They go in when I put the back half of the car in. So this is kind of sitting up here right now, but that's fine. Essentially all I did, I drilled some 3/16 holes here, about, I think they were about 4 or 5 inches apart. Just welded them to the subframe. So the subframe's in, the floor pans are in, and then next up, like I said, I put the firewall together. So when you get these firewalls from Brookville, you can order them completely put together, but the way we ordered them, we got them with all these parts. The feet were seconds, everything was seconds, so the feet had to be trimmed across the bottom here on both sides, and even the sub rails had to be trimmed back on the end here as well, so it would go on. And then what I did is I took an original firewall over here, measured the overall height so that I could get this firewall at the same height. And if you come around front here, there was some holes here on the firewall feet. I just opened them up a little bit. I clamped everything in place, made sure everything was square, everything was the right height, and then I like to have my feet splayed out to the sides like the originals are. Brookville, I think when you buy them, they have the feet going basically straight up and down, but if you go look on an original firewall, these feet are actually splayed out on an angle like they are right here. So that's the firewall. The floor pan and the sub rail is done. That's the end of this episode. Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. This is going to be part 2 of building the 32 Roadster body. This video is going to be about making the cowl sides, both of these sides, and the top section. So in this episode, I'll cover assembling the cowl sides and then attaching it to the top, and then taking this section and mounting it to the firewall. So come on over here and I'll show you the bits and pieces I'm going to work with. Oop, if I don't kill the camera lady there tripping over the extra engine stand. Can't have enough engine stands, by the way. So over here, what I've done, I've laid out kind of all my pieces that I'm going to be putting together. Some of the pieces, like I said, well, actually not some, but all of the pieces have something wrong with them. So this is one of the cowl sides. We bought it as a second, so it's missing a piece here. I'm going to have to basically make a piece to repair that. Some of them aren't trimmed properly. Some of them have to have the holes opened up. Anyway, I've done all this stuff before. I'll go through each thing. Over here, I've begun the one driver's side cowl part. So essentially what I start doing is I'm going to attach the A-pillar post to the cowl side first. I'll weld that in place. Then there's a bracket that goes across here. There's actually a foot that will slide up inside of here that will lock into the subframe. That won't get added in until I actually put the two cowl sides and the cowl top. When I put that on the firewall and bolt it through the bolts on the side, then these pieces will go in. So I'm going to weld this piece up, and then I'll show you that when it's done. It's relatively straightforward. It's all a matter of clamping everything up, doing spot welds along the sides, and the same way with the support, it gets welded in. But like I said, this isn't like we're using first-rate parts. I've had to actually trim a few pieces to put them in because they're seconds and they cost a whole lot less when we do it this way. Okay, so I have welded the A-pillar onto the cowl side, welded the bracket in place. So along the side here, basically just spot welded and dressed it, made sure that the A-pillar is square. Like I've repeated myself a few times, most of these panels were, I think even when you buy a good panel from Brookville, there's a little bit of trimming work that you have to do. But right now I've trimmed the bottom so it fits in. Had a trim around here, the gasket, so it would fit in. So I've trial fitted the first cowl side here to the side of the body. This bracket, like I said before, it goes in once we weld the cowl in place and have the doors aligned. So that's the first one. Over here, the second cowl side was more of a second than the other ones, so I'm in the process right now of repairing this section here. The lip was basically gone. I think in Brookville, when they did it, they had laser cut it halfway through. So I'll finish the repair on this, build it back up and trim it, and then I'll assemble this cowl side the same way I did the other one. Once both of these are done, then I'll work on the top section. So here we are. I've got the passenger side quarter panel all put together. It basically fits in place the same as the other one. So I'll just take it off here and I'll show you what I did. So on this one, just a few minutes ago, I had to make a repair to this lip and put a new section in. I'm just going to finish saying the inside here. So that was repaired. And there's a reinforcing ring that goes on the inside. I don't know if it's called a ring or a rib. This is what it looks like here. This is what it looks like on the top cowl section. I had to put that in. The other thing that had to go in was the I don't know if you call them the firewall tightening legs or the cowl tightening legs. These are bronze pieces. What I typically do is I will get like a nut or a bolt or something. I'll drill the hole through and I'll clamp it in place. It goes about 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom. I'll push this through this side, and then what I do is I just do like a little weld. I push it through and clamp it in place. Do a little weld here that looks like mimics kind of like a spot weld, kind of like the originals would have. So that's the cowl side done. Both sides are done like that. Everything is all welded. Next up is a little more challenging. It's the top of the cowl. Again, I'm working with seconds. So this was a cowl we got from Brookville. They must have tried to assemble it, so there's some damage here. I'm going to have to fix that up. Also, this section here is a reinforcing piece that goes inside there. So these flanges have to be measured and bent over to 90 degrees. So they'll sit here. And then there's these pieces here I'll go through that will fit there and then fit down over the top of the cowl sides. Oh, one other thing I had to do was drill all the holes on the top here because the top of the cowl is bolted to the cowl sides. So I'm going to carry on with this. I will probably measure it up, maybe even get the camera lady to film me folding the edges over onto it. Okay, so I went and measured the cowl bracing on R32. It seemed to be a little longer than this one because on my first attempt I bent the flanges too long and it wasn't good enough. So I'm going to do a second measurement from there. We're going to rebend the flanges and trial fit it here. So just go over to the brake here and we'll bend these two flanges at a 90 and trial fit it. Not a lot of real estate here. So the first measurement I had was 3/8 of an inch. It's more like an inch. So one good thing about metal, you can bend it. If you bend it one way, you can bend it back. So there's one side. I'm just going to do an inch on this side. And then we're going to go try it. So there's the two flanges bent in. We're just going to go try it in the sheet metal, the cowl. And see if I got it this time. There we go. That side's really good. That side there, I might have to tweak it up. So we're going to go with that. I'm going to carry on here. Like I said, there was a lot of damage to this piece here. I've got to dolly it in, and there's quite a big dimple there. That's the way we got it, but that's one of the that's why we paid what we paid for it. So I'm going to dolly this down, bring it down to the flange, make sure everything is good. Then I'm going to carry on working with these pieces. These pieces can be quite miserable to fit in because they're basically a raw stamping. So they've got to be trimmed and then welded in place. But the intent of this, it goes in here, it meets up with the reinforcing piece. So it's just, like I say, a raw piece of sheet metal that Brookville, when they assemble stuff, they trim it. They've got little jigs or whatever. It'll take me a little while to do that, but I'll show you the finished product in a few minutes and show you where I trimmed it. Okay, so I carried on and I dollied up the edge here, the side molding, and then I took each one of the cowl sides, I placed it over the top of the cowl top. I drilled the holes to put the 1/4-inch bolts in, put them in place. As you can see on the bottom, there's actually a reinforcing piece. We may not have, we'll insert a picture. It's up underneath here. It actually sandwiches the two pieces of sheet metal together and connects up with the reinforcement piece or underneath the cowl. I've worked on one of these pieces so far. So like I said, this is what we start with. It's kind of like a rough stamping. And then I have to trim it and bend the edges. Right now I've got it positioned here, and this one is basically ready to weld in, and then this would dolly over. When the cowl gets installed onto the subframe, the cowl sides will actually come in like this a little bit, and then I'll drill a little hole here and I'll weld this in place. The originals have a rivet that goes between these 2 points. So what I'll be doing with these is I just drill a hole through and weld it once everything is all in place on the car. So I'm going to carry on. I'm going to trim this piece. Here, I'll show you. There's the difference between what I've got to do. I've got to trim the tops, and then on the back, you've got to bend the tabs in. So a little bit more dolly work on that, but that piece is ready to weld in. I'll weld this, trim this, and then tidy it up. Like I said, I'll do the other one. And then the final fit, I'll take this whole cowl section and I'll mount it on the subframe there, and that'll be the end of the video. I have the cowl on the body, or on the subframe now. Like I said, there was a few things I had to do, one of which was to weld this little piece into the A-pillars here. So basically drilled a 3/16 hole, put the welder up high, did a nice penetrating weld on that, and then up inside here, there's these little pads, reinforcing pads for the windshield stanchions that have to be welded in place so that when you drill through, you've got something to bite into. There's a better picture of the plate that goes on top between the cowl sides and the cowl top. On the bottom here, as I told you before, the bottom part of the A-pillars aren't welded in yet, but they're installed now, so kind of have to use the fine adjustment tool. So it's this piece here, it slides into the A-pillar, then it slides down on top of the subframe. It's not welded because when I put the doors on, I may have to shift the A-pillar forward or back a little bit, because the next step is to make the doors with the hinges and then get the doors perfectly square to the subframe. Two adjustments will be here on the A-pillar itself, and then also the firewall feet around the front here. I'll show you over here, I guess, right down here. So the firewall feet are screwed into the frame now. I've got them adjusted up where I want them. So the adjustment for the doors is going to be a combination of loosening or tightening these, and then adjusting the A-pillars forward or back. That'll be the next episode of building the doors. The cowl band here, the reinforcing band, I put that on, and I've got that tack welded and spot welded in place here. Got to do a couple little dress up things before I move on to the doors, like just weld those or grind those welds up a little bit, and probably get the wire wheel out and clean off some of this rust that was picked up when it was transported here. I got wet. So that's it for the 32 Ford cowl assembly. Building sides and the top and putting it on the subframe. So that's part 2 of building the Roadster. Part 3 coming up. Like I just said, we're going to build the doors, put the hinges, drill and tap the hinges into the A-pillar, have those all adjusted. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please shoot me a message. I'll try my best to answer them. If you want a more close-up picture of any of the things we put together, send us a message. We'll try and get them to you on Instagram or Facebook or however you get in touch with us. That's it for now. Again, hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. This is episode 3 of building the 32 Ford Roadster body. This episode, we're going to assemble the doors and hang the doors on the cowl. The starting point for hanging the doors is actually getting the hinges set up. So the hinges, as we get them, and I think even when you buy them not as seconds, they come basically as 2 bronze pieces. Sometimes you've got to trim the inside a little bit, but you've got to drill and tap your own holes. So what I've done with all the other cars, you want that line to be as straight as possible. So I just basically use a piece of threaded rod, tighten it up between the 2 hinges, and then the hinges actually just get set inside and clamped in place. So right now, like I said, the first step is basically to assemble the hinges first. There are 3 screws that go into each hinge, and it consists of it is a 5/16 24 threaded screw with a tiny head onto it. These are the ones that Ford, reproduction Ford ones. What I've done in the past, though, quite a bit, is I've actually taken these machine screws with the hex holes into them. I've ground them down until they're to the same size as the head on the original screws, and then just taken a mini grinder and then put a slot into it so that the actual screws still work as the screws. But in this case here today, we've got the right screws with the washers. So I'll start by probably drilling the first hole here and here, and then I'm actually going to tap it right on with my tap. I'm going to tap it right on the car, and then there's a big countersink that I'll put in here with this countersink tool so that this washer right there will actually fit into the hole. Once that's set in place, then I'll do the 2 back holes, and then I'll repeat the same thing on the other side. So we'll carry on with this. Like I said, there'll be a couple steps to it. Hinges, then we have to assemble the doors. Most of these don't have any of the holes drilled for the latches or for the handle, so I'll have to do that. I'll get that ready. And then I'll assemble the door skins on the doors, and then assemble the doors on the hinges and adjust them and weld them in place. So watch along as we put the doors together and the different steps. So here we are the next day. Last night I worked on the hinges and the door, and I forgot to go get the camera lady. So I'm going to cover a few things here with regards to the door. What I did, as I said before, I get a little echo going there with the door. I drilled and tapped these holes for the hinges. It's 5/16 24. They're all installed now. Like I said, I clamped them and I held them in place, and then drilled the holes, tapped the holes, and then chamfered them, and then put the screws in. Next thing I proceeded to do is actually put the doors together. Like I've said, every part that I have is seconds. So one of the things that we've got to do, or I had to do, was the latch mechanism, which goes in here. None of the holes were drilled or tapped for it. Fortunately, the holes up here for the handle, they were drilled and tapped, and they're accessed through this hole here and a screwdriver. The video here now is basically fixing the holes up, drill and tapping these holes here. I did 1032 screws. You can do 1024. It's quite common on Fords to have 1024 threads, or even a more uncommon one is 1224. I've had them that size before, but it's hard to get screws. So quite common to get 1032 screws. So that's what I'm using on this one. In the event that you make these holes too big, you can weld them back up and re-drill them, or put nutserts in the place. Like it's a little insert that you put in the hole and just got to thread a hole into it. Over behind the camera lady here, I'm getting ready to put another one of the door skins on. I don't know how long she'll stay here with the noise, but this door skin here, the inner door skin, over here where the latch mechanism gets drilled and tapped. The reason why it was seconds, because they put the reinforcing pieces on the outside, so I had to basically clean those off, weld them up, and put like little metal reinforcing plates from behind, and then drill and tap those same holes for the latch mechanism. The other thing you have to do is the inner door skins, when they fit inside of the outer door skin, you've got to trim them where they laser weld them or laser cut them so that they fit in there nice. Then in order to put the skin on, it's really straightforward. You got to position the inner door skin inside, put a set of vice grips up top here to hold it, and there, and on each one of these corners put another set of vice grips on. Like I said, I'll do some of this with the camera lady here, but it's quite loud. The other thing I like to do is just clean my hammers. Make sure the faces are smooth as possible, because if you use these hammers for other things than body work, which I unfortunately sometimes do, you have dents into them, that'll transfer to the metal. So this is actually a door skin hammer, so I'll be using that towards the end to hammer in here. But to start everything off, what I'm going to do is you basically start, and you don't hammer the whole thing all the way. So it's just, you're just going to bring it a little bit all the way around. Your vice grips might pop off from the whacking, but you just have to put them back on again. Like I said, don't try and do the whole thing. Just work your way around slowly, all the way around, a little bit at a time. Nope, there goes one more spot. It's not a brand name vice grip, so it pops off. So again, I'm just going to repeat this, and I'm going to keep on going all the way around until so up here I'm starting to roll it a little further. I'll keep doing that. I'll keep going. So I guess for the purposes of the video, so at some point I'm going to have that rolled over more, and then I'm going to use the I'll put a dolly in behind it. Somewhere I had a dolly. There we go. So I'm going to keep rolling that, and then what'll happen, I'll put the dolly in behind it, and I'll slowly work my way around several passes. That's what the door skinning hammer is for, because you can actually come in here and you can come straight down onto it as opposed to interfering. So I'm going to carry on with that, work my way around. You can see over on the other door here, it's all hammered over. Now what some people will do is they'll actually put a little tack weld at intervals here so that the door doesn't move, because sometimes you can't really put too much pressure when you roll that edge over to hold the inner and the outer door skin on. Our 32 over there, we just put a spot weld every 6 inches all the way around. Once the door alignment is good, and you're happy with it, then go back and then basically tack weld it in place. so here we are. We should have inserted a little time-lapse video of me drilling and tapping these holes for the hinges. After I did that, I fit the doors, and come to find out I had seconds and the door was actually sitting too low. So I had to take the hinges back out and then weld the holes back up. Now, if you're going to weld the holes back up, it usually puts a blob on the back. So what I had to do was take a piece of, I've got a heavy piece of copper here. I inserted that in behind, and then I welded the holes up and then ground them smooth. Then basically moved my hinges another 1/4 of an inch up. And again, I've done 5. This is the 5th 32 I've done put together this way. First one that I ever had the hinges, actually the holes sit too low and the doors wouldn't shut. Anyways, it is what it is. You've got to make a mistake, recover from it, find a way to fix it. Like I said, probably a lot of you know already that weld won't stick to a piece of copper. That's probably worth quite a bit of money right now, but essentially put that behind where you're welding, and then it'll be smooth on the back of the weld. And again, I just re-drilled the holes. Right now, what I'm doing is actually fitting these doors. So these doors I put on, and then I move them up and down and in and out. And right here, if the camera lady would zoom in, what I did, I positioned them and I marked them outside, then I clamped them in place, and then I just drilled and just stuck this little rivet like in the hole right there. There's one on the bottom. Just to position it so that I can then drill and tap the holes. So right now what I'm doing is I am drilling and tapping the holes. I've got 4 of the holes drilled. I've got 1 screw in. The screws we're using, we're making do with what we've got. So what I'm doing is I don't have the exact screws, but I've got these super long ones that I happen to pick up that have got the right head on them. So I'm just going to cut them off, chamfer them, and I leave a bolt on it so that I can back the screw out, and then that way the thread on the end, when I cut them off, will thread back in. And then I chamfer this tip and I just run it through a tap or a die here on the bench to clean it up. So I'm going to carry on with that. I've got 5 more to do on this side, and then I have to do all 6 on the other door here, and then we'll carry on. So here we are. I now have both of the doors all drilled and tapped. A few things I had to do, like just a few minutes ago, like I explained, I've got the 3 screws in each door. Got that sorted out, and then I was at the stage where I've got to align the doors to the opening. So that was a combination of clamping down here on the A-pillar, either twisting the A-pillar, pushing the A-pillar in and around, essentially so that when I close the door, I've got an even gap across the bottom and everything's all lined up. So that's how I've got that done on both sides. There's another section in here where you kind of have to do an ugly weld to, there's 2 tabs here that are inside the door skins. They're probably riveted on the originals, but when you look at the Brookvilles, they do the same. This is what we do. Basically clamp the tab once everything is in place and then weld it. It's like a little reinforcing thing for the door hinge. So you can see over here, same thing. The A-pillar right here, this reinforcing tab, I clamped it down, adjusted it forward, back, until I got basically an alignment on the door, and then tack welded everything in place. So now my A-pillar is in place, the 2 doors are on. I just picked up the dash from the customer there. So the dash will be on another episode. As I showed you when we put the cowl in, these little pieces here that were so much fun to fit, they basically fit on the inside, and there's screws that go up through here. I'll cover the dash later. That's the episode 3. Hi, welcome back to Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. Welcome to episode 4 of the 32 Roadster body build. This episode we're going to cover putting the quarter panels together. So there's 2 quarter panels. There's 2 sections of the quarter panels we have to put together. The B pillar has to be attached. There's a sill that goes across the top of here. So the first step is going to be to weld the B pillar in. There's a bracket here that connects this sill piece that goes across the back. And then there's this piece here that's going to be mounted in there that ultimately the roof will be attached to. So I'm going to work my way doing this on these. Once this is all done, I'll show you how you put the drip rail. The drip rail will go in here in the back. And I'll have to, in order to put the drip rail in, I have to semi-mount the drip rail across the back, and as well as this panel here in order to square things up. What I'll do, like I said, I'll go through building both of these, and then we're going to attach them to the subframe on the 32 Roadster body. There's a little bit of work to do on this one, like on all the other previous parts. There's a couple of defects here. I'm going to have to make a little patch to go in here, and then it was over trimmed here as well where it goes onto the drip rail. So I'll start with welding these in place. I'll show you what I've done. I'll make the repairs here. I'll put the drip rail in and I'll do one side, then I'll do the second side, then we'll mount them on the subframe. Oh, and one thing with this one, this is going to be a challenge. I don't know if you can see it or not. Down here, this panel, I don't know what happened at Brookville or where it was transported from. It's got a whole bunch of little dings here. So the camera lady and I are more than likely going to have to set the camera up. We are going to put this on the English wheel, and I'm going to try and roll some of that stuff out. So we'll videotape that too, or we'll do our best to try and videotape it. But before I do this particular quarter panel, I'm going to have to fix that first. So follow along. So had a chance to get some work done here. I've welded the B pillar in place, the support tab, and then this reinforcing piece that goes underneath the back of the seat. Over here, you can see what I do is I'm going to take a drill. I think this is 3/16. Essentially, you saw the clamps in the previous picture, and the clamps like here. Essentially drill a hole and then weld the hole up. So you're drilling all the way through the sheet metal into the B pillar and weld it up. And it's basically, we're doing like a spot weld because we don't have a spot weld machine here. If we did, it'd be a whole lot easier. And then later I'm going to come along here, I'm going to address any kind of raised material off the top of that. The next step is to put the drip rail on. And as I described, I had to put you need to put the back panel on and then position the drip rail across the center here. The drip rail on the side actually lines up right there with the back of this drip rail that goes under. So I'm going to do the same thing with the drip rail that goes for the trunk lid. And I'm going to do the same thing as I did on the B pillar. I'm going to come along here and I'm going to drill in between the clamps, drill like a 3/16 hole there and there, spot weld it. Then I'll keep going all the way along here until that's done. Then I will actually I have to drill. Come along the other side here, camera lady. I'm sorry. There's one more piece that has to go in. I'll tell you what I got to do. So there's 4 holes that hold this back of this back panel on. There's one that goes underneath the vice grip, one here, and one here. There's also this supporting bracket that we have to install. It will go, once I drill the holes, the 2 holes line up with these. So that'll go in place. These holes here, like they're meant for spot welds, they don't get welded in until after the body's all positioned and everything's in place, because this is another support piece for the back of the quarter panel. So I'm going to drill these holes, get this in place, tack weld this in place, tack weld all along here. I'll show you what I'm doing, and then I'll repeat the same process on the other side. Once I have both of the panels done, I'll start putting them on the sub rails. I carried on with putting the rear quarter panel together. As I said, I was going to spot weld, like drill and spot weld each one of these. So I put, I think, a 1/4 inch hole, well, it's clamped, drilled holes, and then I dressed the holes up. There was a defect here and when they cut it from Brookville that I fixed. And then also down here in this corner, it was actually missing. So they had laser cut it off, and that's why it was a second. So that's all repaired here. So this was all fixed up. The panel is on. The support piece, like I said, I welded it on the top. I have my holes drilled for the panel that goes across like I'm supposed to. This is not welded in place on purpose. That will get welded in place when the whole body is squared up. The next step to putting this on was to position it on the body. So actually I'll get the camera lady to come over the other side. There's not a whole lot of room, real estate here these days. So what you do is basically get a block of wood, semi-position it in the back, when you're by yourself anyways, set it here, and then the B-pillar is pushed in against the subframe and clamped in place. The goal is basically to start with this bottom, position it so the bottom left-hand corner here is spaced just right. Once you have that this way, then you've got to work with tilting like the quarter panel up or down until you get an even gap here. Another problem to get the right gap, I mean visually you want to get the right gap, but functionally you also have to get the right gap because of the catches here. Now when you get the catches from them, they're never finished, they're rough. So you've got to dress this side and you got to dress the back side. But at the same time, it has to fit up against the B-pillar. It can't be too tight, can't be too loose. So the gap has to be such that I can mount this on the B-pillar when I'm done, and then the door will open and shut right. So that's one side. I've got this welded on. I'm going to carry on. I'm going to do the driver's side. And when I do the driver's side, I'm actually going to attach this back panel at the same time. So when I tilt it up, I'll be able to actually clamp it in here and aid in the assembly of the driver's side quarter panel. That's the end of this video right now. We'll carry on with a video on the subrail extensions, and then we will put the other quarter panel together for the 32 Roadster. Hope you enjoyed. Follow on for the next videos. Plenty more to come. Thanks. Welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. Today we are going to start the driver's side quarter panel for the 32 Roadster. We did a separate video on how to make these subframe extensions. We have the Brookville ones here. I've just positioned it in on this side. It's not welded in place yet. That final fit will come when I have the quarter panel assembled here. As I mentioned in a previous, watch out camera lady, you're going to bang into that. This particular quarter panel has some issues with it. There's like little tiny picks and dents in here. We're going to set this up over on the English wheel here in a couple seconds and try and roll it out. But I need to roll that out as best I can before I assemble the driver's side quarter panel. There doesn't seem to be any other issues with it besides that. The other quarter panel, I had to make a repair in the corner and retrim this, but on first glance, really the only thing that seems to be wrong is those picks that are in that side that we're going to clean up. Hi, so that's our attempt at English wheeling this panel. I wasn't too aggressive with it because I just wanted just enough tension to take the high and low spots out. I'm going to buff this panel up and take a look and see how it looks, and if necessary I'll repeat the process again. I don't want to stretch the metal too much or change its shape. I just wanted to get those high and low dings out of there. Still don't know what caused it, but I mean that's why it was a second. You know, can't really feel anything there, but I think once I buff it, I'll see what it looks like, and then we'll go from there. I carried on with assembling the quarter panel because after I buffed the other side, all the little picks and dents, I mean, it wasn't that bad. I just didn't like the little picks into it, so buffed it out. Looks good. Can't see any high or low spots. So carried on. Welded the B-pillar in plus the brackets just like I did in the previous episode for the passenger side. I didn't really want to cover that again. If you're curious, take a look at the other video before this. This is the driver's side. So rails welded in, supports welded in, B-pillars welded in. Someone asked me how I lined up this back panel here. So a couple things. You want to line the back panel. Actually, I told the camera lady to go on this side. Now I need her over on the other side. I'll show you how I line it up. Real estate is unfortunately at a premium here. To line up the back panel, essentially this section here has to be smooth. You've got to line up the body lines here. And then this section here actually dips down. It's got to be at the same levels of this side of the quarter panel so that this body line basically sticks up an even amount on either side. So positioning this way is to line up the back of here, and then positioning it this way gives where the position is. Now I'm going to drill the holes like I did on the other video through the quarter panel. The other thing, to line up the drip rail, what you do, I have to line this part of the drip rail up so that the back half of this drip rail meets up with the back of here. How do I know that? I've got a bunch of pictures of other Brookville Roadster bodies as well as my own. A friend of ours went to Brookville and they took a bunch of pictures, so I've got those. I can basically cheat for the way that they assembled them. But essentially, the back of this side drip rail lines up with the back of this drip rail that's going to go in later. So that's how I position this. Brookville has all the jigs and stuff. I basically have to go off the pictures. But given that this is the fourth one and they all went together, I'm on the right track here. So going to carry on, do my little holes here, do my little spot welds to put this in place, drill the holes here, and then we'll carry on with the assembly, eventually putting this onto the Roadster body. I carried on welding all the pieces to the quarter panel here. The drip edge is all welded in. I've got this bolted into place. What I did, I took the quarter panel then, I put it on the side of the vehicle. There's a block like I talked about in the other video before this. I put a block there that I can use to basically tip the quarter panel up and down this way. Down in this corner, the B pillar actually just right there, you can see it gets pushed into the subframe. I just put a clamp onto it. And what you do is basically put this in place, pivot it up and down until you've got the right gap on the door. And the right gap on the door is when the striker plate, like there's a striker plate. I did had to trim that one up like the other one. Like when you get them, you've got to trim them. They won't fit. So there it's in place. And then it's a little tight, so I got a little bit more adjustment to do, but it goes in place. My body lines are in alignment. I've got a clamp down here just basically holding it in place, the sheet metal to the inner and the outer. So I'm at the stage now where I'm going to tack it in place here, tack it, drill some holes here and tack it in place there. Over on the other side here, because I left this top panel bolted onto the quarter panel, so when I tipped it up, I then put some loose bolts here and the pre-drilled holes, And then the drip rail here, I simply just slid it in and pushed it down. So these actually have to, right here, you see I bent the edges in so they fit. I'm going to crimp those back up. I'll weld these here. I'll tighten these bolts up. And I'll finish the video off with basically the B-pillars welded in place, the sheet metal welded to the subframe, and basically that's it for this video once I show you that. The quarter panel now is welded in place. The drip rail is welded in, everything's tightened up. The back panel's in alignment. As I talked about earlier with the back panel sits at the same level as the quarter panel here, so it sticks up an equal amount. They don't perfectly align here. Seen that on every one of the Brookvilles. I'm probably gonna have to do a little bit of metal work here. That's completely consistent with all the other ones. These pieces here for the roof were welded in place. I didn't mention them before when we assembled the quarter panels because all the other ones I did before actually didn't have them. So this is to put the convertible roof on it. The other thing I did when I put this in place was I finished fitting the doors. So I put the catches on, the striker plates on. Now the striker plates basically come with the striker plates as I described. You've got to blend it here and blend it in the pack so it fits here. On the back, there's just screws. So what I did, I just took a piece of 3/16 inch plate here. I cut a piece out and then I just drilled and tapped. I think it's quarter 28 is what these are. So basically drilled a plate with quarter 28 holes into it. And that's what goes on the back here. So these can be loosened up and they can be adjusted a little bit because the hole going through is slightly oversized. You want a little bit of adjustment there. So both doors right now, they open and shut. There is a final alignment that has to be done later as far as it going, like the body going this way. There's a structure we typically put in behind the seat here that holds everything together. When that's done, which I'm going to cover in an upcoming episode, there's these feet that actually have to they'll get welded in here that finally ties in the B-pillar, but that's not part of this episode. I'm going to cover that, like I said. I'll put there's a pan that goes in the back, and as well as the feet that go in. So that's on an upcoming episode. Around the back here, to finish this episode off, the sub-rail extensions here are tack welded in place, and I started to tie down the back of the floor. So that's basically the end of this video where we've got the two quarter panels on. We're at the next stage of assembly, which is going to be the whole back section here, the lower panel. There's a lot of parts that go into doing that. So that's going to be an entire episode next week. There's the panel there. I'm going to go through probably making one and how to put it on, plus all the structure that goes in place. I think there's probably 10 or 12 different pieces that have to be assembled there. So that's it for this episode. Both quarter panels attached. It's starting to actually look like a 32 Roadster now. Doors open and shut, catch in place. So we're well on our way here. So any questions, send us a message. Hope you like. Please subscribe and share. Everybody take care. Thank you. Hi, welcome to Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. This is part 6 of a 32 Ford Roadster body build. In this video here, what I'm doing is covering, basically reinforcing the back half of the body. I like to put this structure in place on the Roadsters. I've done it on 4 other Roadsters before. What it does, it actually ties the Roadster body into like a firm structure. It won't move side to side, keeps the alignment on the doors. To do it, you got to make sure that the measurement, like from here, the B-pillar, up to this point. I've got 52.5 from there, and I've got the same the other way. So from a triangulated point of view, I'm good. The other measurement is from here to the bottom of this tray. It's 24 3/4 on both sides. So not only am I good like on an angle point of view, but I'm also good up and down. So what I've done since the last video was put this tray in place. It's spot welded in place, and then built this structure here that basically ties everything in. What I'm going to be doing next is actually installing these B-pillar reinforcing pieces. Now, you got to beat the living crap out of these basically to fit them in. And the first time I did it, I thought it was really strange until I actually saw some Brookville bodies right from Brookville and then pictures of their own. I'm not sure why, but basically it's got to be beat until it fits in here. It's going to get welded to the B-pillar and welded to the subframe. So the body is at that stage where I install these. Now, for the rest of this video, I'm going to work my way back after that's done. And on the previous video, I also built some of these sub-rail extensions. I have these tacked in place now. There's a whole bunch of different pieces of sheet metal that goes in here. There's a support piece, and then there's the extension for the floor. All of that basically leads up to installing this back panel. Now, while I have this back panel, Brookville makes a really nice one. I have this one that was given to me for doing the 5 windows. I'm not sure if that's even 20 gauge metal. I'm thinking it's 22 gauge. Will it fit? Yes. I'm not happy with it. So while I have this Brookville as a pattern, what I'm going to try and do is actually make some of these for the 2 5 windows over here because I need them while I have a really good pattern. Now the Roadster panel is not the same as a 5 window. The width is the same, the reveal is the same, but the overall length is actually not the same. It's actually the 5 windows a little bit longer. The other piece that has to be made, and while I've got a good copy, is the back of the floor extension, which fits in here. Again, I'm not sure. I think it's a little shorter on the 5 windows, but while I have a pattern in my hand, I may attempt to make that either on this video or a subsequent video. Okay, moving along here, I actually welded in the B-pillar supports, like I said. And just as I described, you pretty much have to beat these in to get them in place. As I've said, I've actually looked at Brookville bodies straight from the factory, and they do exactly the same thing. Not sure why, but that's the process to put those in. Our Roadster is done this way. This one is. So right now, the B-pillars are completely welded in. Everything up to this point is all squared up, doors open and shut. Still have to go back and put the dash in, but I'll cover that later. I've carried on down to the back here, and I'm just going to show one of the pieces that we put in place because as I go along, it's going to get covered up. So this support piece here for the drip rail is welded in place here. Sometimes they'll put a screw in here, and then also it's tack welded here along to it. So both of these supports are in place now. What I've done now is I've taken the Brookville piece and actually installed it. It's got 1/4 inch nuts and bolts here. There's 3 of them. They're bolted in place. I've tack welded down here this support to the floor, and then the extensions, the sub-rail extensions, are now welded to the inside and then welded down up against the sub-rail itself. The floor is not in place yet. I just wanted to show everybody the next step and where we're at, and just kind of show as each piece goes in, because you wind up covering the pieces up. If I show you the finished product, the next step, there's a floor extension that goes in place. Now before I put this in, I'm going to make a couple of these for the 5 windows using these as a pattern. The 5 windows is just a little bit shorter, but it's the same piece. So I'm just going to take a few minutes here. I'll make a couple of these. I'm going to carry on after that and install this and show you how it goes in. Over on the Roadster, I continued to put everything in place. I put the rear pan in and I spot welded it in place. I put the support here for the back. It just welds to the rear pan. The rear pan welds underneath of the floor pan. And that's basically where we're going to end this video because I'm running out of time to post it for Thursday night. There'll be one final video. Welcome back to Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. This is the final episode of the 32 Ford Roadster body build. In this episode, we're going to cover installing the trunk lid. There's a drip tray here that we have to install. This goes in, but there's also a missing piece I've got to fabricate, so I'll fabricate that up. There are some supports that we have to install in case the customer is going to put a rumble seat in. There's also the the hinge mechanism, I guess, it holds the trunk in place, and as well as the hinge pins. We have to do the final weld of these supports, and then there's a couple things inside here we'll tidy up on. So follow along here. We're gonna hopefully get this all wrapped up for this last episode. So here we are. One of the more difficult things to install is the trunk lid. If it was all pre-drilled, of course, it'd be much easier, but they're not. We don't have any of the jigs. In this case here, we have to figure out where the actual hinge hole goes. In order to determine that, what you've got to do is go off of the hood or the trunk lid. Now this trunk lid was pre-drilled. All the other ones I had weren't. So essentially you've got to measure to the center of this hole, where the center pin is going to be in both directions. Once you have that, and it's around 9/16 each 9/16 in each direction. So 9/16 and 9/16. Over here, you want about an eighth of an inch gap. So 9/16 plus an eighth is about 11/16 to get to the center of that hole. So make a mark here. Then from a depth wise, 9/16 down, but you've got to allow for this to be so you've got to put the same distance down, which works out to, in this case here, 11/16. So 11/16 each direction. That way we allow for how much this sticks up and a gap in the back. Now, figuring out where you got to put holes is one thing, but then how do you drill it in here? Fortunately, in my old job, they were throwing away a lot of oversized drills. So I used this with an air drill, which is really small. And you can come in here with these longer drills and pilot hole them much closer versus, if you were to use a small regular drill, you'd be coming at an angle and can't drill something straight. So if you get access to these drills or drill extensions to try and drill the holes in, the center hole, it's a 1/4 inch plus the clearance. I think I put I think that hole's 9/32 right there, which allows for that 1/4 inch pin to go through there. And then these larger holes, I'm not sure what size that one is. That's 1/2 inch. Those are actually, no, that's not the one I used. I used that one. So those larger ones are 3/8. So I drilled 3/8 holes there to allow for this hinge pin to go in. So the 3/8 holes allow for the countersink. So this goes in like this, and then they screw in like that. And then this pin once this is in place, like that other side there, the pin actually just, there you go, it just screws in and out. So that's how you put this hinge in. Over here on the hood, I don't have original ones, so I made this basically up out of a piece of plate steel. I drilled and tapped some 1/4 20 holes into it. So I just took a blank piece of steel, with nothing on it. I clamped it in place there, and then I basically punched the holes and then drilled and tapped the 1/4 20. The original Ford ones, if you buy them, actually what will happen, the centerpiece here, this one goes in permanently, if I can thread it. And then the back one actually has an adjustment, so that'll actually allow you to go up and down. I didn't buy those ones, I'm just using it like this. This will actually fit in place. I'll show you in a minute how it fits in place. So we'll put all that together, we'll put the trunk lid on, we'll show you going up and down, and we'll carry on. Here is the trunk installed. As you can see in here, the pieces that I just showed you, the inner brackets here that go on the inside of the trunk lid, and then there's the pin right there that comes through. I'm going to carry on here. There's there's a sill that goes in here and a piece I have to make, so I'm going to carry on making those pieces and putting them in here, and we'll finish up the trunk. I'm carrying on with the assembly work. I have the rear, I guess, drip channel or whatever you want to call it, installed. It's relatively straightforward to install. The missing piece, not sure if the camera lady can look up underneath there or not, but I had to make a piece up underneath here, which basically is a bent piece of 18 gauge steel, which screws into the back panel, and then the piece on top here just screws into it. Relatively simple, straightforward, nothing crazy to do. You can see the same piece here on the original, which is kind of beat up, but essentially that holds, the water runs down here. There's usually some hoses or whatever, or that'll drain to the bottom of the vehicle. And likewise, sometimes what we do is we'll drill holes here so that any water coming through will drain out. That'll be done later with the customer. A few more things I've got to do. I installed the bracket here, which will hold the deck lid up. And then now I have to install the pin in the right place, and then the latch mechanism down there. So I'm going to keep on going with this and just show you what I put in as I do it. Here's how you decide where to put the nut for the bracket that holds open the lid. So you would close the lid up with this installed, and then basically put a mark right here in the channel. And then when you open the channel, when you open the lid back up, you would drill and tap it, drill it through here. There's a nut and bolt that goes there. You don't want to go, if you go too far this way, it won't shut. And likewise, you want the lid opened up as far as it'll go. Some people will put hinges and everything else so that they could put the lid open, but we're just doing basically a stock, I guess, lid opening holder, or whatever you want to call it. The other thing that I did for the installation, we put in the rumble brackets. The rumble brackets aren't going to be used, but the customer wanted them put in, and they came with the kit. In order to determine where they went, I just basically went off of the 5 windows for position, measured where they were here, and then basically on the floor here, there's a spot that that's marked off where I can weld it to the floor. The supports over here are now welded to the fender wells. That's in place. Installed the little latch bracket that goes, and then I drilled the hole for the handle. Over in the front, I put the dash in. The dash is a little tricky to put in because basically you've got to position your dash here and then basically know where the hole is and then measure basically from this point up to here and then drill a hole through. These screws are, I believe, 1224 screws, so it's not that common of a screw size anymore. Most of the screws in here are actually 1224, but there's actually a couple 1024s in the corner. The corners are a little more difficult to find the hole, but it's the same thing. If you know the distance, like I marked here, this was 5/8 of an inch from this face out, so I drilled a hole 5/8 of an inch from measuring from this when the dash is in place to there, and went along and did it. I think that's about it. Everything we did to it, it's pretty much all done for what the customer wanted me to do. That's, as far as I know, he is coming to get this next weekend. That's the end of the 32 Ford Roadster body build, making it out of 32 Ford Roadster second parts from Brookville. This is probably the fourth one that we've done. After this, our plan is the customer's going to come get this body and take it on its way. We're going to take our body that's behind the camera lady there and put it back on the frame, which is her Roadster. And we're also going to carry on putting the front end onto this in another episode. So that's it for now. Hopefully you enjoyed the 7 episodes on the 32 Ford Roadster body build. Please send any comments. Please hit the subscribe button. We're getting really close to our 1,000 subscribers. I would really appreciate it. And everybody take care. hopefully you enjoyed that. As you saw, one of the 32 Roadster bodies left. This is our 32 Roadster, which was the first one we built. But also, we're going to tack on a video of one of the Roadsters coming back after it was fully assembled, because we're going to do the interior work onto it. So follow on later on this year, and we'll go through that step by step, how we do the interior on one of these bodies too. Please like, share, tag, and subscribe. Please send us your comments if you have any questions about us building the 32 Roadsters. And everybody have a great week. Take care.